So oil has a great possibility of corrupting economy. There's only one country that has oil that is really doing extremely well, and a couple that are doing okay. Norway and Brazil. Why? Because they take the money, they don't inject it in the market to create inflation. They put it aside in sovereign wealth investments and for infrastructure. If you don't do that, if you do what they do in Iran, give it as bribes to poor people, things that are unproductive, and use it to suppress people, or in that case, is not a blessing. It's a curse. There was a question back there, and then we'll continue.
What do you think are the motivations behind Europe and the United States getting involved in Syria? Because they kept saying it was for humanitarian reasons, but it's obviously.
The question is why US and Europe are involved in Libya, you said? Mm-hmm. Well, you can never discount oil. These are countries that are important for the global supply of oil. Okay. But in the case of Libya, it was a very clear situation. Libya was on the verge of a massacre. And Gaddafi was stupid enough to announce that once he gets to Benghazi, which was a matter of 48 hours, he's going to commit really a massacre in Benghazi. And the international community, again, is a power of public opinion that now is present now that wasn't present even 10 years ago because of internet, because of satellite TV, because of local satellite TV like Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is not CNN, it is Arab. It is located in color. It speaks Arabic. And it has learned to be impartial. So people know more. And because of that, there's public pressure. Because people don't want another Rwanda. In Rwanda, it had two things. Number one, it didn't have oil. It wasn't strategically important for anybody in 1992. I highly recommend the wonderful movie Hotel Rwanda for anybody who hasn't seen it. And number two, international power said, okay, it's domestic. We know that Hutus are going to massacre the hell out of Tutsis, but it's domestic. As a result, 800,000 Tutsis were killed. Not by bombs, not by guns, by machetes. One by one, hacked to death. So the war started to kind of put pressure on the strongest countries. France particularly had France and Italy had a past in Libya. And therefore they had to act first, because they were the ones basically who created this entity called Libya. Libya used to be really two tribes, East and West. And these colonial powers said, oh, you're now one country because of our strategic interests. And they put the leader of the place that is now Benghazi, King Idris, they said, you are the leader of the entire country. He said, I don't want to be the leader of the entire country. I don't know what's going on in Tripoli. He said, no, now you are the leader of the entire country. Now, these countries now have a responsibility when for 30 years things go bad. And especially after they have called Gaddafi back from the cold and became a kind of a cause celeb for the Bush administration. See, we got him back. So they have this past, and there's also an international pressure to prevent a massacre. And that's the reason, one of the approximate reason, not the final reason, why this happened. You can make the same argument about Kosovo and Bosnia. Yes, sir.
America is a great country for a lot of reasons. I'm proud to be an American citizen. But
I knew there was a but coming.
There's a but. It seems in recent years, and there's a lot more of it going on in recent years, especially with the last administration. I'm not going to get political, I won't do that. But a lot of people are beginning to realize that what we've been taught our whole lives, that America is the best, that we have the best education system, that we have the best economic system, we have the best political system that's uncorrupt. Which we know that's not true. But with this last administration, a lot of people are grumbling. If you go to any news article on the web, go to any message board, or just walk up a casual conversation, a lot of people are talking about the possibility in the next coming years of some kind of revolution here in the States, which I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it's not violent or anything like that, but it's a possibility. What barriers do you see specific to American culture that would prevent something like that from happening?
Well, first and foremost, you have a constitution that has worked. We have to, give it that. Not only the American Constitution worked, it became the template for the United Nations. The Bill of Rights became the template for the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is a country in which, you remember I said revolution is when there is no other way out. People vote when it doesn't work, like it didn't work in the case of Vietnam. Because all the elites wanted to continue the Vietnam War. Everybody. The House, the Senate, the executive. People voted. There was a lot of problems. People took to the streets. And that is what stopped the Vietnam War. When enough people came in body bags, enough people got embittered, they were not tortured, they were not put in prisons. So people use other means in order to correct the system. The great thing about transparency and democracy is that even though it's incomplete, it can correct the system. People will eventually kind of look at it and say, okay, why did we go into Iraq? $3 trillion. And who is responsible for failure of intelligence? Was Rumsfeld telling the truth that he sincerely didn't know that the intelligence is false? So there is going to be corrections. There is going to be the history will decide whether George Bush is the worst president of the entire history of the United States, as President Carter said, or Obama is the worst president of the United States, as Mr. Trump says. In the short term, sometimes these things get confused. But in long term, I have, just like you, a naturalized citizen. I'm very proud of the tradition of democracy. This is why I came here. I mean, I came here to study it, then I ended up staying because I couldn't have done what I have done in terms of working for my ideals in my own country. I would have been out of a job. The only job I know how to do is be a teacher, and in the prison. All my friends are now in prison, every single one of them, or under house arrest. So something like that really is not realistically in the cards to happen in the United States, except in these dystopian movies about generals taking over. The idea of civilian rule is taken seriously here. When that guy, who was the name of the loose cannon in Afghanistan, who said all those terrible things about Obama to Rolling Stone? McChrystal. He got called, and he got relieved by the civilian president. Same thing with MacArthur.
But isn't that censorship, though?
No, it's not. In the army, you obey. And you obey, in America, you obey the civilian system. And with all their power, if anybody could do anything, it would have been MacArthur to Truman. He was the most popular general. He could do no wrong. So he got called on the carpet, and we got relieved. So those are one of the great things. Some of the great things are a lot of things that are not very good, and a lot of things I'm actually ashamed about the United States. I tell you, my students, Jerry Springer is one of them. Because I can see how you go to other countries, they miss the fact that it's a freak show. They take it seriously. They think this is what Americans are. I'm not as ashamed of Jerry Springer himself or the people on the show. I'm ashamed of the people who are hooting and shouting, the entire group. When something terrible happens, there's a Jerry. That's not the best aspect of American culture. But there's a lot I'm proud of, and like you, and I don't see the possibility of revolution. I see possibilities of correction. Yes.
I read somewhere someone was arguing about Operation Iraqi and setting up democracy in Iraq would one day cause a domino effect in democracy around the area. Do you think it had any effect in the situation?
It had absolutely zero effect.
There's
The
actually protests in Iraq.
Yes, it had no, and what happened in Tunisia came totally out of the blue, and that completely nullified the theory of the newcons of these guys don't know what democracy is. We have to inject it. We have to take it by force, and it didn't work that way, and it worked in ways that were never predicted. And we'll make that the last question.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, with democracy, obviously, all these types of government, do you see any of these countries establishing a new type of government? In other words, cross between, say, socialism and democracy or something like that?
Well, democracies can be socialist democracies, like you have in Scandinavia with progressive task system, or socialist governments come to power in Europe all the time. In Spain, you have a socialist party ruling, called a socialist party. But I think so long as you have a democracy, and people with ideas come there and then have to run cities and collect garbage and deal with the inflation and have to answer to the people, I don't worry about whether they go socialist or Tea Party. Democracies correct themselves. And with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you.